It is often said that we overestimate what we can do in a day, but we vastly underestimate what we can do in a month. And I think the same principle applies to half an hour. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to ask you to do something uncomfortable. I'm going to ask you to sit still, listen, and consider the possibility that the life you want is not separated from you by a lack of talent or a lack of luck, but by a lack of specific, deliberate action. Welcome to the show. Today, we are dismantling the life you've settled for and building the framework for the life you actually want. And we're going to do it right now. Let's start with a brutal truth. Most people wake up and live what I call a rehearsal life. They are rehearsing for a future that never arrives. They think, once I get the promotion, then I'll be happy. Or, once I lose the weight, then I'll have confidence. They are waiting for their real life to start. But life doesn't work that way. Life is not a dress rehearsal. It is the main event, right now. And if you are waiting for a permission slip from the universe to start living well, you will die waiting. So how do we change this? How do we stop rehearsing and start living? It begins with a concept I call identity-based change. For years, we've been taught that if we want to change our lives, we should set goals. We set a goal to run a marathon. We set a goal to write a book. And there is nothing inherently wrong with goals. However, goals operate on the surface level. They focus on the outcome. Identity-based change focuses on the beliefs. Here's what I mean. Imagine two people trying to quit smoking. You offer them both a cigarette. The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second person says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Do you feel the difference? The first person is still a smoker who is trying to do something different. They are fighting their own identity. The second person has already decided who they are. A non-smoker doesn't need to resist a cigarette because it doesn't align with their self-image. When we try to change our lives by only changing our results, we fail because we are still operating with the same beliefs that created the old results. If you want to change your life in the next 30 minutes, you have to start by changing the story you tell yourself about who you are. So, stop saying, "I'm trying to get fit." Start saying, "I am an active person." Stop saying, "I'm trying to be organized." Start saying, "I am a disciplined person." Your brain hates inconsistency. If you tell yourself you are a disciplined person, your brain will eventually start looking for evidence to prove you right. It will look for ways to align your actions with that new label. This is the foundation. Without this shift in identity, any change you make will be temporary. Okay, so we've established that we need to change our identity. But how do we actually make that stick? How do we stop the cycle of motivation followed by procrastination? This brings us to the second pillar, the power of systems over goals. We live in a goal-obsessed culture. We're told to set massive, audacious goals. But here is the paradox. Goals are about the results. Systems are about the process. In the words of the investor and philosopher Naval Ravikant, a calm person doesn't have a different set of problems from a stressed person. They just have a different set of systems for dealing with them. If you want to change your life, you don't just need a goal. You need a system for showing up every single day. Let's use a practical example. Let's say your goal is to write a novel. That's a huge, overwhelming goal. It's easy to look at the mountain of write a novel and decide to do it tomorrow. But if you have a system, your system is simply, I will write for 20 minutes every day. That's it. The goal is the result. The system is the action. When you focus on the system, you win every single day that you follow it. You don't have to wait for the book to be finished to feel successful. You feel successful because you wrote for 20 minutes. This builds momentum. And momentum is the engine of life change. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, talks about the plateau of latent potential. This is the idea that we often expect progress to be linear. We expect that if we work out for 3 days, we should see abs. When we don't see the result immediately, we quit. But real change happens in a different way. It's like an ice cube melting. You can heat an ice cube from 25 degrees to 31 degrees, and nothing appears to be happening. It's still a solid block of ice. But then, at 32 degrees, it melts. It took 1 degree of change to cause a phase shift, but it was all the previous work, the previous 6 degrees of heating, that made it possible. Your life is the same. You might be eating healthy for weeks with no visible change in the mirror. You are at 31 degrees. Don't stop heating. Don't stop the system. The phase shift is coming. Now, let's talk about the thing that kills more dreams than failure ever will, the resistance. Author Stephen Pressfield wrote a masterpiece called The War of Art. In it, he describes resistance as a force of nature that acts against human creativity and progress. Resistance is that feeling of dread when you sit down to do the work. It's the voice that tells you to check Instagram one more time before you start your project. It's the procrastination, the fear, the self-doubt. Here is what you need to understand about resistance. It is a compass. The more resistance you feel toward a task, the more important that task is to your soul's evolution. Think about it. Do you feel resistance when you think about doing the dishes? No. Maybe a little boredom, but not deep, existential dread. But if you think about starting a business, or asking someone out, or writing a book, suddenly, your stomach ties in knots. That knot is resistance telling you that you are moving out of your comfort zone. And the comfort zone is exactly where you need to stop living. To change your life, you must learn to act in the face of resistance. You have to treat it like a background noise. You don't wait for the fear to go away. You suit up and show up anyway. I want you to try an experiment. For the next 7 days, identify the one thing that you are resisting the most. The one task that, if you completed it, would make everything else easier or become irrelevant. That is your one thing. Every morning, before you open your emails, before you doom scroll, before you do anything else, you work on that one thing for 60 minutes. Or even 30 minutes. Just get the reps in. This is what discipline looks like. Motivation is a liar. Motivation is an emotion based on how you feel. If you only work when you feel motivated, you will have a very inconsistent life. Discipline, on the other hand, is the ability to do the thing you said you were going to do, long after the mood you set it in has left you. So far, we've talked about identity, systems, and overcoming resistance. But there is a hidden enemy that most of us don't even realize is draining our life force: the digital clutter. We live in an attention economy. If you are not paying for the product, you are the product. Your attention is being harvested and sold to the highest bidder. Every notification is a tiny interruption, pulling you out of your deep work and shallow happiness. If you want to change your life, you must curate your inputs. You cannot consume a diet of junk media and expect to have a high-quality life. Think about your phone. How many apps do you have that actually add value to your life? How many do you have that just trigger your dopamine receptors? Every time you get a like on a photo, you get a tiny hit of dopamine. It feels good. But over time, it rewires your brain to crave these shallow validations instead of the deep satisfaction of building something real. Here is a radical suggestion for your life change. Go on a digital diet. For the next 30 days, delete the social media apps from your phone. Not deactivate your account, just remove the apps. If you need to check them, do it on a computer at a designated time for 15 minutes a day. What you will find is silence. And in that silence, you will find yourself. You will find your boredom. And in that boredom, you will find your creativity. You will have time to think. You will have time to dream. You will have time to actually do the things you keep telling people you want to do. Your environment shapes your behavior. If your digital environment is a casino designed to keep you hooked, you will behave like a gambler. Change the environment. Make the good behaviors easy and the bad behaviors hard. Let's get uncomfortable for a moment. We need to talk about the people in your life. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's a cliche because it's true. We are social creatures. We unconsciously mimic the behaviors, the habits, and the attitudes of the people around us. If you are surrounded by people who are cynical, who complain about their jobs, who gossip, who drink too much, who have no ambition, you will find it almost impossible to rise above that. Not because you are weak, but because their reality will constantly pull you back down to their level. When you decide to change your life, it will make the people around you uncomfortable. Your growth is a mirror reflecting their stagnation. They might not do it consciously, but they will try to drag you back to the old you, because the old you made them feel safe. This is the hardest part of changing your life. You might have to love people from a distance. You might have to have difficult conversations. You might have to walk alone for a while. And that's okay. It is better to walk alone than to walk with a crowd going in the wrong direction. Seek out the people who are where you want to be. If you want to be fit, hang out at the gym. If you want to be a writer, go to writing groups. If you want to be an entrepreneur, go to startup meetups. Find your tribe. Your tribe will lift you up when you fall. They will understand your language. They will challenge you to be better, not drag you back to being mediocre. We are nearing the end of our time together, but before we wrap up, I want to give you a practical tool. It's a framework for making decisions that align with your new identity. I call it the October 10th, 10 rule. When you are faced with a decision, especially a hard one or a tempting one, ask yourself 3 questions. How will I feel about this decision in 10 minutes? How will I feel about this decision in 10 months? How will I feel about this decision in 10 years? This framework forces you out of the immediate gratification trap. Let's say you're on a diet and someone offers you a donut. In 10 minutes, that donut tastes amazing. Immediate win. In 10 months, that donut is a distant memory, but if you say yes to every donut, you haven't lost the weight. In 10 years, that donut means nothing. But the habit of saying yes to things that don't serve you has built a body and a life you don't want. Now, apply it to something hard, like going to the gym. In 10 minutes, you are sweating and uncomfortable. In 10 months, you are stronger, your clothes fit better, and you have more energy. In 10 years, you have avoided chronic disease, and you are mobile and healthy while your peers are slowing down. The ability to delay gratification is the secret to a successful life. It is the ability to endure the pain of discipline now, to enjoy the pleasure of results later. Most people grab the pleasure now and endure the pain later. So, we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about identity, systems, resistance, digital detox, your social circle, and decision-making. But there is one final piece. The most important piece. Action. You can listen to this podcast 100 times. You can buy all the self-help books. You can create the most beautiful vision board in the world. But until you take action, nothing changes. Information is not transformation. There is a gap between knowing and doing, and that gap is where most people die. You have to cross it. You have to be willing to be bad at something new. You have to be willing to look foolish. You have to be willing to fail. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is a component of success. Every expert was once an amateur who refused to give up. Every person living their dream life has a graveyard of failed attempts behind them. They just didn't stop. So, here is your challenge for the next 30 minutes. Well, for the time after this podcast ends, I want you to write down 3 things. Who is the person you want to become? Your identity. What is one small system you can implement today to start moving toward that identity? Your process. What is the one thing you are resisting the most that you know you need to do? Your action. And then, I want you to do it. Not tomorrow. Today. Right now. Turn off this podcast and send that email. Lace up those shoes. Write that first sentence. The life you want is on the other side of the discomfort you are avoiding. The only person stopping you is the person you see in the mirror. But the good news is, that person is also the only one who can save you. Thank you for spending these minutes with me. I hope this wasn't just background noise. I hope it was a mirror. I hope it was a wake-up call. Your life is waiting. It's time to go live it. If this resonated with you, take a screenshot, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the change starts now. Take care.